Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of GBN America with me, Patrick Christie's. And as ever, there is a heck of a lot to go at, isn't there? Because President Trump has now got his feet firmly under the Oval Office table and he started really doing things. Whether or not people think they're the good stuff or the bad stuff, we're about to find out and have a debate on it, aren't we? And I'm joined today by Jessica Ehrlich, who's a Democratic strategist and an attorney. I've also got Chad Connolly, who's former chairman, GOP strategist as well. So thank you very much, both of you. Great to have you both on the show. Chad, I'll start with you, if that's okay. Should we start with what Trump has been doing in terms of immigration and border policies? Do you think he's got off to a good start? If so, why?
Oh, my goodness, Patrick, and honored to be here. Listen, what a tremendous breakneck pace. He's doing exactly what he was voted and overwhelmingly to do, and that is to clean up the border, to secure it, and to run the illegal, especially the criminal elements out of the country. I think you've seen an active part played by the Secretary of Defense, Homeland Security, and ICE agents across the board seem overwhelmed with joy that they're actually being able to do their jobs. And so everywhere I go, I've done a bit of travel already in the last 2 weeks. Uber drivers, hotel clerks, people on airplanes seem to be pretty ecstatic that they're getting exactly what they voted for.
Okay, Jessica, I'll put this to you. I mean, we've seen in the last couple of days, haven't we, that Mexico appeared to have bended over and allowed Trump to, have 10,000 of their troops on their side of the border to stop both the flow of drugs and people. I believe Canada's doing something similar now as well. I mean, it does appear, Jessica, that he is getting results.
And, I believe the deal with Canada is something they've talked about for a long time. What I think will be interesting in both of these situations will be the long-term sort of results that we get out of them. Do these things actually work and help down the line? Certainly, the president is delivering on what he said on the campaign trail. And I think that resonates with the American people in terms of talking about illegal immigrants who are not just here illegally, but are also criminal. Which is where I think the focus needs to stay, as well as making sure, whether or not there's talk about, reopening Guantanamo, sending them there. El Salvador has been talking about, doing sort of a pseudo prison exchange. I mean, it's just getting a little crazy, but certainly, the tariff threat and the way the president has gone about this, I think it's all part of his art of the deal. Whether or not that ends up working for the U.S. economy and the global economy is, I think, yet to be seen as well. But certainly as a messaging tactic, it's, right on the nail.
Well, Chad, look, we can't really ignore, certainly when it comes to things like Mexico and Canada, part of that deal was that Trump was going to impose tariffs on those countries if they did not bend over and do what they've done. He may still impose them in about 30 days' time if he sees fit. My understanding is that he has imposed 10% tariffs on China, and I think China have now reciprocated in some way, shape or form. Is this quite a high-risk move economically now for Trump, do you think, that those tariffs? Is that high risk? Is he playing roulette with the American economy for you?
Patrick, I don't think so. Anybody who's read The Art of the Deal, and Jessica just mentioned it, understands what President Trump's doing. He has thrown the stake down in a place that, frankly, we as Republicans aren't accustomed to somebody being this active. It's almost like in previous debates before President Trump, and we negotiate something, whether with the other side or with another nation, we'd start off at the 50-yard line. And we as Republicans would back up to the 5-yard line and apologize. Trump's throwing the ball to the 5, and whether it's a nation or the other party, they're so excited to get back to the 50, they can't stand it. And so look at what happened with Colombia. The guy tees off on number 3. They say, hey, you're not sending your immigrants back. You're not sending those criminals back here. And by the 8th hole, not only had they accepted them, they sent the president's plane to get more. I think that's what you're seeing with Mexico and with Canada as well, and probably with China. Is President Trump's playing hardball? He's delivering on his promises. And I got to tell you, when I'm in an Uber in Washington, D.C., with a young guy that I probably wouldn't have pegged as a Trump voter, tells me how much he loves it. And I know that's just anecdotal, but I can tell those stories from all over the country. People are loving this pushback and standing for America first, and that's what President Trump's doing.
I do wonder, Jessica, whether or not you take a different view about the tariff situation and the potential risks that may have as well. I mean, closest to where we are here at the moment. I mean, the European Union are possibly about to get clobbered with something, and we're quite worried here in Britain. I'm mainly worried, by the way, because I think my leader seems to be an absolute idiot. But apart from that, so we
well,
are
yes,
we are slightly worried about what might happen here.
For sure. But my understanding is that actually, Great Britain is sort of in England in general is next on the sort of tariff table, and that there are deals going on right now as we speak, with the president and his administration. So it'll be interesting to see, for sure what comes of that. Particularly, I think labor is weakening a little now, if all sort of signs that are pointing in those way from polls this morning. But, additionally, EU is next, and I think certainly this is where we see Trump being Trump. And we didn't get to see that, I think, as much in his first term, in the sense of he was learning more about what it meant to be in power in Washington, how it worked, because it is very different from what he's used to. And this time he's really come in sort of, all guns blazing. Now, what's different is that normally in government situations, we see these things maybe happen behind the scenes, and they're not projected to the American public the way that they are. The president is sort of a master at that, at saying, like, promises made, promises kept, that sort of thing, and delivering. And, with the tariffs, I think they definitely have roiled the international markets. But I think that'll settle down. There's an interesting, dichotomy here that's happened, and Democrats have not really grasped this and dealt with it properly, because part of what Trump did was take the Democratic messaging that we had before about keeping jobs in America, making things made in America, and he took it over and made it part of what he talks about, and all of that sort of populism. And now it's difficult for Democrats to sort of get it back. And whereas, Republicans, particularly Senator Grassley, who's still there running things over on the Senate side, they were the biggest proponents of free trade, of all of the major trade deals we've seen, whether it be NAFTA, whether it be with, China, all of these groups opening up all of these things, that would somehow increase our economy. And there's arguments that could be made. Yes, it did, but it also affected American manufacturing, American jobs, and American families. J.D. Vance has written about this extensively. So I think it's going to be really important for Democrats to take that messaging back, to take this issue back, and say where we are on these issues, and, sort of say this has been what we've said all along.
Okay. Charlotte, I'll move us on again to something else now. It's about energy and the environment. And drill, baby, drill was the message, and has continued to be the message as far as I can tell, because we now have a national energy emergency in the United States, which I think allows you, in the case of every single emergency, to do more, doesn't it? Which is why he's expediting oil and gas drilling in Alaska and other regions. And I believe, I've got it here anyway, he's paused offshore wind leasing and rescinded federal clean energy procurement targets. Basically, he's made it easy to get oil out the ground, I think, and gas, hasn't he, and fracking. So do you back this? Because that flies in the face, doesn't it, of, well, I suppose you could call it the big green agenda that appears to have gripped a lot of Western countries for the last decade or so?
Yeah, Patrick, listen, I'm a all of the above conservative on energy exploration and production. We need to do everything. And when you look at President Trump's first term, we had record low gas prices for my lifetime. The supply, the production was there. I think when he opens back up the Alaskan pipeline, and look, the very first day that Joe Biden was in office, he fired all those pipeline workers and he stopped an awful lot of fracking, and he ended those licenses for drilling. So President Trump's going to open all that back up. He understands something that everybody in America understands. Prices are related directly to how that transport takes place, getting the product to the grocery store. And everybody I know is out there hurting under the Joe Biden economy for the last 4 years, where prices just skyrocketed. And so, like Jessica said, a lot of this is going to settle out in every aspect, because President Trump is throwing down the gauntlet. He's doing everything. He's going to do an all of the above energy process that's going to bring prices down for America across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, just come back to that, because if it does happen that way, which is that prices come down, you create a load more jobs with it, and everyone generally seems to feel as though they've got a bit more money in their pocket one way or another. I mean, that's the argument over, isn't it, for the Green lobby? They're just going to drill, baby, drill from now on because it's worked.
Well, I think the main argument is that there's only so much you can drill. Eventually you drill and there's nothing left. I mean, that's the larger argument of, the green lobby. But we have seen some disastrous effects in our country, I think, as well as, in Europe in terms of wind farms, solar farms. The nature of the technology is evolving so quickly. I mean, the things that you can think, okay, we can do with solar, there's just some debacles that have happened in California and Florida. But, as someone who is, a native of Florida and grew up on what is now, I suppose, the Gulf of America, we don't want to have, drilling, right? I mean, this is a major issue. But there are larger political issues that are global economic power issues that I think are here. American oil and American oil companies have been in this battle with the Middle East in terms of who controls the price of oil. And Europe is hurt even worse than we are. But energy costs in the United States have continued to skyrocket. We need to take that power back and that control back in any way that we can. China has been going around gobbling up various smaller entities and mineral producing countries, whether it be in Africa and South America, and coming through our back door because they have the ability. They don't have enough oil. That's why we can't sell enough cars there, because they have too many people and not enough resources. So they're going around the world to try to make that difference. We can't continue to allow that to happen. And the way that the president is dealing with that, I think, is through these policies. And, the Greens need to get smart about safety and sort of those issues, that there is an economic issue, because yes, we all want to be alive in the future, but there will be, China has no green policy. They just don't care.
No, and neither do India, really, and a lot of those countries. And that's part of the problem. Also, we just anecdotally here in Britain, we've got a real kind of eco-fanatic energy secretary who the other day had to hold his hands up and admit that we're going to have to apparently get most of our technologies from China, which then gives China the power to turn a lot of those things off if they want to, or if we ever fall out with them, which made people think that maybe we shouldn't be doing that, really. But then let's just touch on another issue, if that's all right, Chad. The societal stuff that Trump has got about doing. So whether he's looking at, banning men from women's changing rooms, he's rowing back on gender, he's rowing back on diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's been very, very big on that, Chad, hasn't he? How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a good thing? Some people have said, obviously, it's maybe the opposite of being progressive, that maybe in some cases it's put people out of a job simply for being a woman or black or gay. What's your view?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot to unpack, Patrick. And listen, I think what President Trump's doing to end the racism of DEI, it's inherently unfair and it doesn't make sense. We need to have the best and the most brilliant in every spot. It ought to be a merit-based society. We understand that. And you don't have to know a lot of parents whose little girl has been injured because they had to compete against a boy. I know parents like that. I have a pastor network around the country in the U.S., and I have talked to multiple parents and who their little girl, their teenage daughter, who's worked hard all her life to get to a spot or earn a scholarship, suddenly having to compete against a male, or having to go to the changing room or showers with a biological male. It's embarrassing. And, for all the Democrats screaming over the years, protect women and save women and all that, they've shown to be exactly the opposite. What was it? Just a handful of Democrats last week who voted to protect women's sports. That we're talking about ladies right here who are having to compete against biological men, and everybody knows they're bigger and faster. And when girls get injured by men who are competing against them, it is just flat wrong. For President Trump to reverse those policies, I think most folks think this is a great idea, and they love it.
Okay. Or Jessica, I'll put the same question to you, really. How do you feel about it? Do you think that there has been a justified attempt here to row back on what people might regard as, frankly, woke nonsense?
Well, it's interesting because I think, again, Democrats have lost the messaging and the power here. I mean, I think the point that you just made, women's issues have always been sort of Democratic issues. These are the things that we lead on, whether it's with reproductive choice, whether it's with women in the workplace, all of these things. And we're seeing a rollback of a lot of these issues and sort of this, conflagration that the majority of people, we're so caught up in the minors and dealing with things that regard to protecting certain very, very, very small groups of the population that we're not looking at how this is affecting the larger population in general. And certainly, I think, it's a very easy pickings for people to go after. But what I, see that's very divisive about all of these arguments is that it's not bringing people together and saying, yes, we all agree we need to be more of a merit-based society, and recognize that there are things that where certain biases do come into play. We're still battling a lot of those, and the policies, I think personally, that we've had in place for the last 50 years have not reconciled them. For instance, for the last 30 years, we've had more women than men graduating from law schools and medical schools, and yet we still don't see women leading national and international law firms or hospitals. That's a problem. What's going on? What's happening there? And I don't think the policies, whether it be DEI or those that have been put into place previously, have addressed those issues. And that's the frustration that American, women feel, mothers, and people in general.
Okay, well, look, both of you, can I just say thank you very, very much. We are out of time for today, but I would love to carry this on another time and pair you two together again, because I just thought it was a really, really good chat. And, I've got a feeling that there's going to be a lot more for us to talk about in the weeks and months ahead, isn't there? So thank you so much,
No
both
doubt.
of you. God bless you both. All the very
Amen.
best. And,
God bless.
And take care, and I'll see you both soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.